let me introduce you to our audience and to our future audience that will be listening to our podcast as soon as it will be released on our social media platforms. So, dear everyone, welcome our renowned guest, Temur Akhmedov. He is the professor at University of Ajou, and also he is currently a green building advisor for the new Tashkent project directorate. And Timur Akhmedov also has an extensive experience in rainwater collection, and he is right now advising and maybe supervising some of the projects on rainwater collection in New Tashkent civil project. Yes. So basically, let's start with the question as soon as possible in order to make beneficial use of your time. So, before any technical discussion will start, could you please explain in more exact terms what exactly do we mean by rainwater collection? How does it generally happen, and how exactly do we use rainwater after we harvest it?
Sure. If we start even further at the beginning, if you take any piece of land, right, when the rain falls, some of that water sips through the ground, goes into the ground. Some of it feeds the trees and plants and everything. Some of it joins the underground water supply. And if it's too much rain, then some of it kind of flows over, and that's what forms our rivers, sometimes lakes and stuff like that, right? So, but this is a hydro balance of the land, of that piece of land, and all the plants and everything, they kind of uh, exist within this balance. Now, once we come in, we humans come in and we start building stuff, we close up the areas, right? We put concrete buildings, no water going through. We put asphalt roads, no water going through. So we disrupt
Yeah.
the hydrological balance there, right? So less water goes through the ground. It doesn't join the underground water supply. Um, some of that water, most of that extra water, then goes through the drainage pipes and then flushed down to maybe rivers or canals or something like that, right?
Yes.
So this is a so this disruption is not really good for the ecosystem. It
Yeah.
puts things off balance. It makes it difficult. That's why we need irrigation system for our trees and plants and everything, because the regular rainfall doesn't
Is no
take
longer
care of that.
enough. Yes.
Right. So that's one thing. So when the rainwater falls, from all these hard surfaces, non-porous surfaces like concrete buildings and asphalt roads and everything, you can collect all that water into special containers, usually underground containers. This is one of the ways. There are many different ways. We will talk about those. But one of the ways, you collect them into special containers. You do basic cleanup of that water, because that water that falls, rain, as it falls, it picks up all the pollution from the air that we generate.
Yes.
Once it falls on the surface, like um, roof, for example, of buildings. On the roof of buildings, you have dust, you have that pollution that's settled, so it washes all that off, right?
Yes.
And then on the asphalt road, you have pieces of rubber, you have oil, you have all sorts of
Dust.
dust and
Yeah.
everything. So that gets washed away as well. So that water, the initial water within the first few minutes, is the dirtiest water in the rain. That water needs to be cleaned up in order to be used later on for something. For example, if we want to use irrigation purposes, we do some basic cleaning. There's some relatively simple filters that take care of that stuff, and then you can use it for irrigation. Pump it up and run through a RIX or some other system and supply the trees with water. If you want to use it in the building, for example, for technical purposes, like for flushing the toilets,
Yes.
or then
Washing
you need to do a
dishes.
little bit more cleanup.
Yes.
Anytime you bring the water into the building, it needs to meet certain standards for cleanliness. We're still not talking about drinking water. We're talking about what sometimes they call technical water, but inside the buildings it's called gray water. So you can use it in the buildings as well. You just need to do a little bit more cleanup. But the most ideal usage of rainwater is using it for irrigation on it. You contribute to that hydrological balance that this land had before you build anything.
I see, I see. So, to make a small conclusion of whatever you said, so basically, before human intervention, the hydrological cycle was nearly perfect, and then we human came and we started introducing these anthropological disorders, and that's why now we should both deal with this problem and maybe make beneficial use of it. And one of the most ideal ways to do that is to harvest the rainwater and use it for household purposes, or even better for irrigation, right? So,
Irrigation on site, yes. I mean, the thing is that um, rivers change, water balance changes,
yes,
things change continuously in nature. That's not a
yes,
problem at all. And obviously, we as humans, we need to live, we need our cities and stuff. Great, that's fantastic. We should do it. But um, we need to support the structure that was there before in order to make the place livable for us. We need our trees, we need the birds and insects and all that kind of stuff, flowers and blah, 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 to make it look nice and comfortable for us,
yes.
for humans. So if we don't maintain that balance as best as we can, it doesn't mean we don't need and we cannot bring it 100% back. That's impossible. But to keep it in balance as well as we could, then we will maintain this ecosystem, will maintain some comfortable life space for us.
I see, I see. Yes, I completely agree with you. And my second question would be, so we see that rainwater collection is important. And it's also beneficial for us because if we are using it for irrigation or for household purposes, it's saving up a lot of the clean water that could otherwise be used for other more beneficial uses. However, building rainwater harvesting structures requires a lot of investment. And how worthwhile is it basically in Uzbekistan? Because Uzbekistan, being arid place, doesn't have a lot of rainfall basically throughout the year. Do you think that it is worthwhile to build rainwater collection systems here? Um, and if it in which regions of Uzbekistan uh, is it more logical to build, and in which regions should we avoid doing it?
So this question would now require a longer, more comprehensive response. So if we look at the water situation overall in Central Asia, our long-term trend is down. Precipitation is down. Rainfall is down. Snow is down. We looked at, for example, when we were looking for new Tashkent to do some projections of how much water we will have 10, 20 years from now. We looked at 30 years rainfall and 30 years of rainfall data in that area near where
New
Tashkent
Tashkent
region is,
project.
where new Tashkent is located. So 30-year trend is down, right? It's very obviously down. Which means when we were planning, we look, okay, 10 years from now, we will have, if things continue the way they are continuing now, then, we will have much less rain,
Yes.
which means we need to be able to supply the water for our plants, for trees and flowers and all that stuff, and obviously for human needs, right? How are we going to maintain that, especially if we're trying to build a city, eventually for 2 million people, right? So that's one thing. Now, our regional climate is changing faster than the sort of global average.
Yes.
Our temperatures are going up faster. The precipitation is going down faster. So it is very reasonable to assume lots of things may happen, but so far the trend is in that direction that we will have bigger and bigger problem with the water supply, right?
Yes.
which means we need to figure out how we're going to effectively use that water that comes to us from rain, from snow, and then from rivers and underground supply, right? So right now, if we're talking about rainfall, you are correct that with limited rainfall, it puts a challenge in designing the systems that are effective for rainwater collection. I can tell you that right now, when the water is relatively cheap, I know prices went up, but it's still relatively cheap.
Yes.
So the calculation is done on the wrong price of water, I would say.
Yeah. Not its
Our
true
water
value.
is unnecessarily cheap. Now, it doesn't mean, of course, people's ability to pay, that's a different matter. It's a social matter, economical matter. But in terms of calculating the value of rainwater collection system, this is not a correct price to compare it with. So therefore, the economic calculation saying this system pays off or doesn't pay off, that's a wrong calculation at this point. So fortunately, in a place like New Tashkent, the way what we were comparing to, not just the cost of water in terms of price people pay, but in terms of the whole infrastructure that we have to build to supply that water.
If it
Now
was clean water,
that
right?
yes. So now that adds up millions and millions of dollars in expense because, if we must supply 20% more water, which means that the pipe needs to be bigger,
Yes.
um, the whole infrastructure with pumps, electricity to supply those pumps, filtration system, and people operating the system, it all needs to be more, right? So from that point, the calculation on those water systems is not that we're going to save so many cubic meters of water, but we're saving millions of dollars on the infrastructure system to support that 20% water that we're talking about over here, right? So the economic calculation becomes different. Still, because of limited rainfall and how the rainfall happens, you still have to think about technical aspects and what makes sense financially, technically makes sense. For example, in Tashkent this year, we had a dry spell from I think start of May was the last time it rained, and then it rained in October,
Oh my God.
right? So you have so many months with no rain. So what is your rainwater system is going to do all these months without rain?
Yeah.
And then it will rain. Now it's raining, but you don't need water for irrigation,
Yes.
right? So how are we going to manage that? Are we going to keep the water that we collect now for several months to be used in spring?
Yes.
Now that becomes problematic because when you store water, you really need to maintain some chemical balances there in order not to have, stuff growing there,
Yes.
right? The
Yes.
water being spoiled and then it becomes dangerous to actually be used.
Yes.
So that adds additional cost to that, right? So how are you going to do this becomes important. This is where you have different options of how to design systems and various ways of catching that rainwater. For example, one method I told you is collecting water in a container and then using it through that system. Other system, more nature-based solutions, you have what's called rain gardens or bioswales. So rain garden, just like its name says, is just a lower part of green space, usually next to buildings or next to roads, where water goes in, and you have different vegetation there that has two important functions. Number one, when the lots of water comes in, it soaks up a lot of water. There's several layers there, but the plants they can soak up water. But when there is no rain for a while, they don't die; they just go dormant,
Yes.
right? Some plants are like that.
Yes.
Usually, the plants that are on river banks, those grasses and stuff, they live in those cycles. Sometimes it's dry for a couple months, and then it rains, and then they
Yeah.
blossom,
So they
and
are
then
adapted to it.
they adapt to it, right? So those type of plants are planted in those rain gardens. so that when it rains, they just blossom. Everything is, life is happening there. But then when the rain goes down, they dry up. They don't die. They dry up. They fall asleep, and you have usually it looks like dried grass, right? But it's
Yes.
not dead. It's alive,
Its root
or
system
dried
is still
bushes.
alive, maybe.
Yes. So and there are special layers underground that are built there for water to filter through. These are biological filters, pretty much. Water going through soil, through sand. So by the time it gets to the joins, the underground water,
Yes.
it's cleaned up.
Yes.
So the water that comes from the road, for example, that brings all these chemicals, oils, and rubber and everything, all that gets cleaned up on the way before it, right? So, and this live structure kind of works as a filter. Bias whale is a bigger form of, larger form of rain garden, basically. This is when you have sudden heavy rain, which I don't have good data, but so I've heard from different specialists that we have, while overall rainfall goes down, the intensity of rain within a short period of time is going up.
Yes, it's becoming more unpredictable. Very less rain during short period, during long period, and then very intense rain in peaks, right?
Right. So this is where they measure rain. Like we had data for the whole day, but they measure rain like 5 minutes or an hour or 10 minutes, right? So how much water falls in? Because your drainage system overall in the city, with like in Tashkent, every time it rains a little bit, it floods certain streets with like
Yes.
right away, which means that a drainage system is not managed, is not designed, is not built the way to handle that much rain. Now we don't have significant rain, but let's say the intensity is going up. So which means your system needs to be able to take all that intensive rain and take that water somewhere, right?
Yes. Yes.
Um, Sort of preferred method for builders, they just push everything into pipes and then run it down
To wastewater
to
treatment plants,
some,
for example.
yeah, to get rid of, right?
Yes.
But if we talk about managing the ecosystem overall, and then creating that comfortable place for people, you create what's called bioswales. These are basically larger areas where, again, they can be flooded with water. And when they're flooded, you have all sorts of plants living there and everything. And water gradually, within 3 or 4 days, seep through. So, I've seen, like in the U.S., for example, I've seen playgrounds built in that area. So most of the year you use it as a playground, but when it rains, it floods, and then within 3 or 4 days, water goes down. You wipe off all those, elements are there,
Yes.
so that kids can use it. But and in another place, I've seen this is. In the northeast of U.S. After in 2013, I forgot the name of that. There was a huge hurricane, and lots of flooding happened in the areas throughout, like New Jersey, New York, those areas, right? And one of the things people figured out there that what they did, they basically dried up all the swamps and areas that typically flooded, and they converted them into land where people build homes.
Yes.
Now, of course, when the rain falls
Yes.
and the water doesn't have anywhere to go, it goes on the roads, which is a canal basically,
Yeah.
and then it goes into people's homes because this is where the holes are. You have
Yeah.
basement in the home, and so it flooded. So some of the states, New York City and New York and New Jersey, started changing things. I've seen in one area, for example, where they build a lake with an area where it can expand when the rainwater comes in. You have, again, all sorts of plants there. It's flooded maybe several times a year, right? So not like all the time, right?
Yes.
But then even if that is too much, there is a special area pipe there that leads water to a part of the forest. It's a huge park.
Oh.
It's a park. It's not a forest or anything, but part of that park they keep it as sort of semi-wild. So in that part, the water floods that part of the forest, and you actually have a walkway above the water level. So you can walk. You can still walk while everything is flooded. So the park remains operational.
Wow.
You can enjoy your park, but instead of just ground, you have water, and you have all these flowers popping up there. A
Nice.
whole different life starts when it floods, right?
Yeah, such a great adaptation.
Those what you would call bioswale. That allows water to gradually over several days seep through, filter out, join the underground water supply, and then maintain that hydrological balance. So these are sort of best ways to collect the water and then use it. And then there are some other systems that are a little bit more technical, where when they build green roofs, some of that water is collected in the special drainage level under the green roof.
Yes.
And through capillary methods, it kind of goes up back into the soil. Now there's limited amount of water you can keep there, but it can
Yes.
Still do that.
I think I was present at the lecture of your acquaintance when they were explaining the mechanism how this system works. I think it was like a guest lecture at Ajo University, and
yes,
it was
you came there. I
amazing.
remember.
Yes.
Yes. So, but to go back to the question about what's financially sensible. Just recently, I had a conversation with one of the government officials that were talking about rain collection systems for rural areas. And they were talking about, can we collect the water on an individual house
Yes.
in a rural area?
Yes.
And when we talked about it, I explained like, okay, rainwater is limited. So I told them whatever you build is not going to justify itself financially. You have to think in different terms, because there's not much water falls on a single house in a rural area.
Yes.
It's in the city you have a lot of water that cannot go through roads and buildings and stuff. But in rural limit. So if you build complicated systems, it becomes very expensive. It's hard to maintain, financially hard to maintain, not only technically. You need expertise and everything. So maybe in a format of a single family home, you will use different methods. For example, in the old days, we used to have in Uzbekistan what they called hose.
Yes.
It's a small pond that sometimes people had in their homes if they had enough land. Sometimes they had community pond. Water collects there. Some of it from underground, some of it from rain, right? So you can adjust it to be used in that form. Now, of course, if you take water from there, you need pumps and stuff like that, or some way to take that water out of that pond, right?
Yes.
But this is where it becomes problematic to do it in rural areas or small villages. It's probably more beneficial in the city environment, in urban environment, where you have access to large amounts of water. You can use it for different things within short distance.
Distances.
You
Yes.
don't need to run pipes for many kilometers or anything. It's right there. Your waterfalls here. Your building is right here. Your green zone is right here. So everything is relatively short. Your system is not complex. It's not expensive. It's manageable, and because there are lots of systems close by, it justifies the cost of a specialist who will manage those systems.
Yes.
So those kind of stuff will happen. However, I understand that as we progress, and if climate change continues in that way, we will have to review our attitude towards water like completely.
Yeah.
and maybe even small rainwater collection systems for even rural homes will need to be developed. Um, Cost-effective ways of doing it so that it can be used, because every drop will become ever more important.
Yes, yes, I completely agree. Before this podcast, as I said, I was reading and preparing in order to have some background, and I read about the experience of Australia when they had this millennium drought from 2000 to 2010. And after that, like during that period, it was so dry that government just said to its citizens, you now have to find your water on your own. And the result, of course, it's a drastic situation. We never want it for Tashkent and for Uzbekistan, but the result was amazing. Is that the rainwater collection infrastructure there? It just got such a boost. Like in 2020, already 1,000 people working in that infrastructure and bringing about 1 billion to the economy of the country, 1 billion Australian dollars. It was amazing. So I will think. So, what do you think? Will citizens of Uzbekistan need another draft or such intense situation with climate in order to realize that even such small systems like rainwater collection are necessary? Or do you think that just by raising the awareness of the public at a small scale, we will be able to achieve that willingness to be curious about the systems and to be willing to learn about them and implement them?
Yeah, unfortunately, societies and individuals are very bad doing something going forward. Um, they are good with reacting to problems, just like you're talking about Australia reacting to a problem. Um, we surely we don't want to wait until the situation becomes critical, because now you're dealing with human safety, you're dealing with
Yes.
lives of people, livelihoods of people, right? I will give an example from the state where I lived for many years, in Oklahoma. So in 1930s, early 1930s, Oklahoma was part of what's called Dust Bowl. There was several years of drought, and then wrong agricultural methods combined with drought created a huge problem where you had dust storms that engulfed the whole city, and lots of farmers just went bankrupt. Half of the population of the state moved out. It was just total devastation for the state of Oklahoma. It recovered its population only something like in 1980s, like 50 years
Oh my
later or
God.
something, right?
Mm.
And it took that kind of dramatic situation then for federal government to impose some rules, set up the artificial lakes, tree blocks for wind, and educate farmers on how to deal with that kind of soil. And the soil in Oklahoma is called red earth state. It's red soil, but it's similar to what we have in Uzbekistan, which becomes mud, right? So you need to manage that soil. And the soil in Oklahoma is very and so on. So you need to manage that. So um, we this is a role for the government. There's a role here for the government to play. Um, right now there are conversations about strategy for 5 years,
Yes.
strategy 2030 for Uzbekistan. I hope some water considerations will go into that strategy as well. That this is an issue, and then we need to really start acting now. We
Yes.
don't want to wait until the
Until
problem
we
becomes
open
a
the
serious
tap and
problem.
there is no water. We don't want to
Yeah,
wait until that situation.
and the thing is, one of the problematic things in Uzbekistan, for example, many government officials they live and operate in Tashkent. I
Yeah.
know, President sends them out to the countryside all the time,
Yes.
but I am pretty sure that many of those people probably have never been to villages where people have to bring water from somewhere
Mm.
for their daily needs, right? Um, or the places where the water they bring in is not clean,
Yes.
right? So if you operate in the place where the water is just you open the tap, water comes out, you don't understand those problems
Yes.
from those places. You have to see it and then figure, okay, the cost of water there is actually substantially different.
Yes.
All that effort and energy that goes into bringing that water, if it's not clean, then it impacts the health of people, which means people will get sick, they will need medication and everything. They're not fully operational, they cannot work and provide for their families. So the cost to the society of that problem becomes much more significant. Those few you know dollars or sums that are need to be spent to create the system are nothing compared to the negative impact you have from not having a clean, reliable water supply, right?
Yes.
So I we remain hopeful. This is probably as much as we can do, and of course, working just like this podcast on awareness of this situation,
Yes.
and then so the young people who are participating now or who will listen to this, they can share with their parents,
Yeah.
saying, "Hey, what is going on?" Because the parents are the ones who are in decision making places. They
Yes.
can raise some
Yes.
questions there.
Yes.
So
So we really hope that we will be able to mitigate the problem before it will happen, or yes, to be proactive, right? So speaking of proactiveness and building the whole new city of New Tashkent, how proactive are we in terms of that project? What is the progress of rainwater collection, harvesting, and reuse in New Tashkent? Are you satisfied with that progress, or do you think there could be more things done?
Um, so you're correct in saying that we tried to be proactive here,
Yes.
and we were fortunate because the whole infrastructure needs to be built from scratch, which means the government needs to spend a lot of money, and those considerations um, allowed us to raise some questions about energy supply, about water supply, right? So we set up much stricter requirements for water efficiency in buildings. The builders there actually sign a contract where it says that their buildings must use so many cubic meters per square meter per year and not more than that.
Hmm.
Now, they may use more than that, but that water would be very, very expensive.
Like
So the water
electricity,
bill,
right?
like with electricity as well, so we set up a limit there as well. Now, those are not some, hard numbers. Those are um, achievable numbers. We
Yes.
took numbers from other places around the world. This is possible with existing technologies, with existing budgets. It's not something, outrageous. We're not requiring net zero energy or net zero water
Mm.
buildings.
Mm-hmm.
This is just, 20, 30% more efficient than we typically do right now,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, so that pushes the builders to use what they call gray water system,
Uh-huh.
where you take water from sinks and showers, for example, and then you clean it and you bring it back to use in toilets, right? From sinks where you wash hands and
Yes.
from shower. It doesn't. It's relatively clean. It doesn't have organic material or anything.
Yes.
You just have a little soap and stuff that can be easily cleaned up and
Yes.
for the usage in for flushing toilets, right?
Yes.
The water, for example, from kitchen sink is considered black water, and the same from toilet, right? That requires substantial cleaning before you can use it. But hand washing sinks and showers, that water can be used. So that helps water to make one extra loop before it goes into the sewage system,
Mm-hmm.
right? Then we required 30% of rainwater from all the hard surfaces on each lot to be collected and used for irrigation purposes. So we calculate how many square meters of hard surface they have, and then these are buildings, parking lots, sidewalks, all of this stuff, non-green area stuff,
Mm-hmm.
right? And then we'll say, okay, on this land you have this much water rainfall,
Mm-hmm.
so out of that 30% you have to collect and reuse for your irrigation purposes. We will supply the remaining water.
Mm-hmm.
So if they don't collect that water, they will have less water
Yes.
because we cannot make the pipe bigger. Right
Yes.
now, they're building the whole underground structure. There are galleries there for water supply pipes going through, right? It's a
Yes.
concrete structure underground. So once you build a concrete structure and you put pipes there, it's impossible, next to
To
impossible to
make them
change
bigger.
that.
Yes.
It's going to cost way too much. So those decisions need to be made right now, and they're made considering that these buildings will use less water and then will collect rainwater for reuse for that. So if they don't do it for whatever reason, right now, or somebody let them not do it, or they change it later, then there will be just less water in the city to supply those buildings. Drinkable water cannot be potable water cannot be used for irrigation purposes in New Tashkent,
Mm.
right? So
Is there
they
actually
have to
such
do
a
it.
regulation in New Tashkent that drinkable water cannot be used for irrigating lawns? Because
Yes,
around the Tashkent it is being used in order to irrigate the lawns. So in New Tashkent
yes,
it cannot be used, right? There is an actual
yes.
regulation like this. Nice, so nice. I love it.
And the thing is that we, for example, there was a decision made also to pretty much to very much limit the lawns. Those are
Mm.
what people try to do it now, making it look like they're, whatever Western countries and stuff. You build that lawn because those require a lot of water
Yes, yes,
in our climate. So there are requirements there that if they build, they only are allowed to have 5% of their land covered by the lawn, and then all the water supply has to come from rain. We will not
nice,
supply water for that at all,
nice,
right?
nice.
So that kind of discourages them from building those lawns. Now, of course, the builders right now mostly it's our local builders that are building that.
Mm.
Couple of
Are there
Turkish
several
companies that have
companies?
been building here for a while.
Are there several companies that are building in New Tashkent?
Yeah, there are many companies building
Wow.
in Tashkent.
Oh, nice,
It's a
nice.
it's a huge
Yes,
project. The phase
yes.
one right now is 6,000 hectares. It's for 600,000 people. I would say I don't know exactly, but I would say there are probably over 100 companies working now, doing all sorts of different things,
Mm.
from pipes, subway, metro lines, canals, and roads and buildings. There are private developers that they go through auction, they win a lot, and
Yes.
then they build there. So it's a huge project, right? So that's the requirement for buildings to collect 30% rainwater. Now on the city side itself, we talked about collecting rainwater as well. I know this will be also a little bit challenging. Again, our builders don't like to deal with that kind of stuff, and the typical thinking like, okay, let's build a cheap road. Here's a green zone, and water into the pipe and run it out. Um, we proposed some. There are canals there. There's a network of canals because New Tashkent is located between two rivers. They call them rivers now, but one is basically old canal, Karasu, and then the Cherchik River, right? So Karasu is a little bit higher, so there are a network of canals that go through New Tashkent.
Mm-hmm.
They're designed there from one side to create some amenity where people can enjoy, but also for microclimate.
No.
So water supply, water going through, what's called evaporative cooling. Water evaporates, it cools down, and along the canals you have park areas, right? So we propose there that some of those parks to be parks where when there is too much rain, they can flood.
Like the one we talked about, right?
Like the one I was telling you.
So nice.
We propose that. Now, one of the things that these canals, as you might have seen, our Cherchik River levels are down dramatically. Karasu is down as well. So to keep water in canals, you need to have dams, and we actually have a network of dams to keep the water level in the canals high enough, and then you will need actually pumps to pump water up to maintain. So these dams also give us another tool to manage rainwater, because when there is intensive rain, what we can do, we can open the dam, empty some space, close it, and then get the rainwater into that place.
Yes.
Now it's not clean water, it's okay, but up with water there, and then we let it go slowly through our dams. So that allows us not to dump lots of rainwater into Cherchik, for example, all of a sudden, but to manage it, keep it, use it, part of it, and then maybe flush the rest of it into the Cherchik River. Of course, some of that water must go. We should not keep all the water for ourselves. It must go to Cherchik, because obviously this is how Cherchik River gets its water, partially through the rainfall from around. So these are standards, these are strategies that we're implementing in New Tashkent. But whether we're going to stick to them and whether we're going to have the discipline to stick to those, that's something yet to be seen.
Are there any fines? For example, like there are so many regulations, but if some construction company doesn't follow them, are there fines for that? Or is there like enforcement body, someone going and checking and monitoring whether they are doing okay or no?
Because they sign contracts,
yes,
there are penalties for not fulfilling the contract.
Yes.
I must say that within these requirements, we have also international green building certifications that are mandatory. For all the commercial buildings, hotels, shopping centers, business centers, is LEED or BREEAM. LEED Silver, BREEAM Very Good. Those are two very broad green building standards. For public buildings, we give them an option to use EDGE as well. EDGE is a simpler standard. It doesn't require much, right? So if they don't fulfill those requirements, there are penalties associated with that contract. In terms of monitoring, we just started some inspections, and I think from this year, we're going to do more intense inspections sort of on a regular basis of all the sites to ensure that they are building the way they're supposed to build.
Yes, Yes, because it is so much important. Now I have another question. So it's so
Hmm.
amazing that new Tashkent is being built in such a great way. Once this new city will be built, and hopefully it will be a successful example of a one huge structure that is following the green standards, will we be able to impart some of the practices from new Tashkent to the old Tashkent? Because old Tashkent, like right now it's just Tashkent, but I think in that time it will be old Tashkent, right? So it will, because it is still the bigger part of Tashkent overall, and maybe if that part will be green as well, then we will benefit a lot as well. So are there, how hard it is to change already existing structure? For example, how hard it is to introduce gray water reuse into existing buildings, or how hard uh, it is to force the buildings to decrease the lawn area, or maybe plant some other more native plants there that are less water demanding, or I don't know, or any other green practices there. How hard it is, how manageable, or what can we do already? Yes.
Within existing cities, existing buildings, existing roads, and everything, obviously there are some challenges on adding new technology there or adding new methods. For example, our system of RX that we
Yes.
had in Tashkent is pretty much dysfunctional now.
Yeah.
And I know there are plans to start reworking it in spring, but I am pretty sure that in some places it will be impossible because to have the water run through, you need the streets to be in a certain slope so the water
Yes.
can just flow by itself, right?
Yes. Yes.
So, but if you start building streets like this, then
Yes.
there is no way for water to flow. But you're not going to put pumps everywhere, right? So now you don't have a one unified system. You probably will have several smaller systems. So it's not going to be 100% as the way it used to be back in the 30 years ago, right?
Yes.
For existing buildings, of course, this is where again the government's role comes in because Hakimiyat and the central government as well, they're the ones who are supposed to set the rules of what is allowed, what is not allowed. Um, like we did with lawns in New Tashkent.
Yes.
Um, and then in existing Tashkent we have a problem, ongoing problem with trees being cut in all sorts of
Yes.
ways, right? It's
Yes.
so that actually furthers the problem. So we need to stop some of those things, like completely stop them, not slowly, not partially, but like completely stop them,
Drastically.
because that, yeah, drastic, because that creates that exacerbates the problem, right?
Yes.
Now, of course, native plants best idea because you use native plants. All those little I do some I've done some posts on online in social media about how they cover up those decorative trees. They protect them from freezing in the winter. They protect them from burning in summer. So what's the decorative about them if they're covered all year long?
Yes.
So
Yes.
with cloth, right? You don't see them. You know they are inside, but you don't see them, right?
Yes.
So but use native plants. We have plenty of plants here to make the yard beautiful, make the front yard beautiful,
Yes.
make the front of the building beautiful. We don't need to bring trees or plants that cannot survive in our climate and require lots of water. That needs to be mandated by the government. That needs to be prohibited by the government, pretty much. And I say strong word here, prohibited, because I feel the situation is dramatic enough now that we need to take drastic measures now
Yes.
so we
Yes.
don't face a serious problem 10 years from now, right?
Yes.
We need to start taking action because these actions take time. it doesn't happen all of a sudden. If the decree comes out today, it doesn't mean that tomorrow everything will be different. We're going to have several years before the transition happens, right?
Yeah.
So within that period of time, you're still moving forward with the whole water crisis situation. Gray water systems in existing buildings is pretty much impossible because you need piping,
To be
additional
changed.
piping, and usually you don't have place for that piping. They usually have enough space for the pipes they have. Put additional pipes is next to impossible. However, and then the drainage system, the sewage system, usually all the water flows into one pipe, pipes up gray water with black water. So then it becomes unusable, right?
Yes.
Rainwater collection is possible because that doesn't require building pipes into the buildings. You can build them underground, collect the water, have the filtration system, everything underground. There's usually enough land in front of buildings to do that kind of stuff. You can set up simple filtration systems with those so that that water can be used for irrigation of the area around the building, so that you don't have to use potable water for that. Now in Tashkent, our water system was pretty much built up when we had 1.5 million people, not 3.5, 4 like right now.
Yeah.
When we had plenty of water,
Yes.
in my childhood, we had very snowy winters where a whole month you will have snow, right? For us, for kids, it was just a joy. We could play around in the snow for hours, right?
Yeah.
But right now, but that snow, what provided the water supply, right? It
Yes.
melted, it went underground, it provided that hydrobath. That condition is gone. So we need to consider that, so that we do need to collect rainwater. Usually, like using example of the U.S., when they do programs like that, they usually start with government buildings, show the technology, demonstrate it, bring the private developers, teach them, and then tell them, now you do it. So first government buildings, because in government buildings it's much easier. It's just executive decision, comes from the top, do it, they allocate some money and they do it, right? Business people, you have to convince them, you have to put some laws and everything. It's a
Yes.
complicated process. You do it with government buildings. Ideally, you do it with public buildings, like schools, for example. Because in schools, anything you do in schools is automatically exposed to broader audience, right?
Yes.
Parents come in there. It's a public place. Usually, once they do something, some government officials comes in. They cut the ribbon. They have a ceremony, photos, and everything, right?
Yes.
So anything like that gets exposed right away to broad audience, which then increases awareness, which then people can maybe make better decisions. But it has to be a systematic strategy that will go over the next 5-10 years, that will dramatically decrease the wasted water. First of all, it improves reuse of water as much as possible, and that program will be based good data about the hydro balance in specific areas. To your question earlier, where you can collect rainwater in Uzbekistan, right? In every place, you have to collect the data, how much rain falls there, what can be done, what's the situation on the ground. I hear from many people around Uzbekistan that underground water supply went down. So when they have to drill further down, or the trees are drying up because they're not getting water from underground supply, right? So it needs to be based on data, not just one blanket program for everything. It needs to be region specific, getting the data from there, taking measurements, measuring things continuously so that you can adjust the strategy. If you do that, then even within existing cities, you can do a lot of stuff.
Yeah. Yes. Hopefully, and I think in coming years we will not only be wanting to do that, we will be forced to do that if climate is going to continue being in that way. Okay. So, uh, let's start reading the questions. So the first question is related to our podcast, is by the user Stone Free. So the question is, how does thermal power plants affect rainwater?
Thermal power plants, they have an impact locally, and obviously, comes from there, but there's no, it's
No
sort of for
immediate, no noticeable
regionally,
impact.
yeah.
Yes.
When you have a lot, then obviously they impact the climate overall, but there's no noticeable
Yes,
impact.
there shouldn't be any noticeable impact. And then the second question by the same user was, uh, oh, very interesting question, and I think we have to answer it. So the question is, why does water cost money? Isn't it basic human right?
That's a question that's raised in many countries, and I would agree that this is a right. However, to maintain the whole system of water filtration, managing, pumping, cleaning, um, who will develop strategies who will use it for next 30 years, ways to manage the use of water. Obviously, they pay equipment to, for you to open the tap and have your water flowing there. There's much behind the scenes, right? There are water cleaning facilities, machinery with chemicals, with people working that because they measure water every hour. It's mandatory, otherwise we can see water that comes out of the tap. Water doesn't stay, all the time safe, clean. Like I told you, initial rainfall, for example, is very dirty water. To do something about that, you need to have a filtration system. The water that becomes potable, drinkable, it needs to be cleaned from all the bacteria and everything.
Yes.
Now, we use we take water from, for example, Tashkent takes water from Charvak water reservoir, right?
Yes.
So water flows there from the mountains and everything. It's generally clean, but it picks up all sorts of stuff on the way. But people dump things into those rivers, unfortunately, right? So all that stuff needs to be cleaned up, and that requires substantial investment. And if you talk about some countries, some areas, for example, next to Aral Sea, which whatever is left of the Aral Sea, right? We have salty water there.
Yes.
In places like Saudi Arabia or something, they have huge desalination plants where they take the water from the ocean and then they created potable water. Those desalination plants require tremendous amounts of energy. It's a very expensive structure to do it, right?
Yes.
So if we want to make sure that the water supply is good not only today but 5 years from now, 10 years from now, for next generation, then we need to have some investments into this. So it cannot be just free, unfortunately.
Yes, yes, I agree so much. And another thing I would also add is probably something that you know and studied more than I did, is human behavior. Whatever costs money, we value, and in order to value the water, we should also know its value.
And that needs to, sorry, but that needs to change. There's called what's called commons, the problem of the commons.
Oh,
Whenever you have type supplies, then people need to change that attitude, because if you improve system, like with electricity, for example, you can have very cheap electricity, but like you're saying, human behavior becomes that
yes,
they start wasting it, right?
yes,
So you can have cheap water if you do it correctly. if you
Yes.
plan for it, right? But then people should not waste it just because it's cheap.
Yes. Yes. It is a very big global problem, I think, how to put a right price on something that should be available to everyone. It is a global problem, yeah, I would say.
Right.
And then there is another question by the same user is what about golf courses and other areas that require having loan? Do they get support or should they use rainwater only too? The golf courts and other areas
And
that
golf courses cannot, yeah, cannot, they cannot exist after rainwater only because they require substantial amount of water. It's a wide open area. To maintain green grass, you have to water it like tremendous. It's a special type of grass. It requires a lot of water to stay green in our heat with 50 degrees, you
oh my
know,
god.
heat in summer, prolonged dry periods. That would
Yes.
require substantial amount of water. So it's definitely. I would think that yeah, you may have golf courses, but they probably should be very expensive because they should pay a lot of money for water.
Yeah, it's such a
This is
luxury to
not the
have.
sport for Central Asia, for sure.
For sure, it's not. Do we have any? Like, I haven't heard that we have any golf courts in Tashkent.
Yes, in Tashkent, there's a golf course back in 1990s.
There were, right? And are they?
There is, yeah,
There is still. Oh, nice.
yeah. And I'm sure I haven't seen in the first phase of New Tashkent. I haven't seen any golf courses.
Mm-hmm.
They may still build something like that. You know, it's considered like a business sport where
Yeah.
businessmen get together and make deals and whatnot. By all means, make your deals, but pay
Mm.
full price for that water because that's the most expensive way of using water. Most expensive way.
Yes. Yes. I cannot agree more for that. Golf should be illegal, says our user.
Of course, you know you can go to that extreme as well. You can totally prohibit it. Um, I don't know whether that's the best way of doing that. They can create a system where they reuse the water, where they pay full price and whatnot. Then maybe we can still have some golf courses. But then it
Yes.
would become very expensive, and probably nobody would want to do it.
Yeah. Yes. Agree. And then the last question would be Tashkent is already divided into new and old parts. Is New Uzbekistan Tashkent, newer Tashkent, or new West Tashkent? Okay. Dear Stonefree, I would ask you to clarify the last question more because I guess it's not that understandable. Great.
I can. I think I understood
Oh,
what
nice.
he's
Uh huh.
trying or she is trying to say. There's confusion. You have what's called New Uzbekistan. It's almost like a brand. You have New Uzbekistan projects
Uh
in
huh.
Tashkent, in Samarkand, in Bukhara, and everywhere.
Uh huh.
Right? These are new districts that are being built within existing cities or adjacent to existing cities.
Uh huh.
New Tashkent is a separate project. It's not under a New Uzbekistan brand. It's a separate project.
Mm.
It's managed separately. It's a separate, completely separate entity with its own planning and everything. So the rules that we have in New Tashkent, they do not apply to New Uzbekistan projects right now.
Mm.
We have much stricter rules in New Tashkent. Going back to your question about learning and using not only in existing Tashkent, one of the things that came from the president himself is for New Tashkent to serve as an example for other projects so that they can learn. We don't have a formal structure of knowledge transfer as of yet, but this is something that ideally needs to be done so that smaller projects can benefit from a large project like New Tashkent. New Tashkent, because it's a bigger project, it can pull more resources. It
Yes.
can have people like myself working there, like a small project in Bukhara will not have somebody like me responsible for green stuff
Yes.
for budgetary reasons. But we can take some of the rules here and adjust them to those parts. So that's something that can and should be done.
Yes. Okay, so I think we still have a little time, like 8 minutes. Um, another uh, user asked a question: isn't it possible to use artificial lawn for golf courts? I think it is.
Yes, there are. That technology is improving like continuously,
Yeah.
where the feel of the grass is becoming more and more closer to the existing or natural grass, right?
Yeah, the artificial.
Um,
Yes.
yeah, but one of the problems with if you have for example, a golf course with artificial turf, one of the things you really have to think through is rain falls through the whole sort of drainage system for water go into the ground, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it needs to be a more advanced system, not just
Yes.
a rainwater just going through. It is very much possible. Now, I don't know of examples of golf courses using artificial turf, but I would think that as the cost of water goes up, as all sorts of restrictions come forward, then they probably will go towards artificial turf.
Yes. Yes. Then I see that there are no other questions, so I can give a question. Let's
Okay.
use more time. So my question was, in our previous discussion, you mentioned how important it is to educate people whenever you are introducing a new technology or a system that is more sophisticated than the one they are used to having. So, in New Tashkent, will there be any programs that will be educating new residents about how to properly monitor, manage, and care about those rain collection systems, um, or any other new systems that will be incorporated there? Will there be anything like that?
Now, when you build, this is a fortunate situation of big cities. When you build places like that, you usually have property management companies, right? So you don't have regular household people, regular people interacting with that equipment at all, usually, right? You have specialists managing those systems, and regular people don't see any of that in most cases because it's underground, it's in the basement, and stuff like that, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now, I do think those systems need to be made visible so that people do see them and they
Yes.
become more aware of what's happening in their city. It needs to be that kind of awareness slash educational effort. But managing rain gardens, managing bioswales, managing rainwater collection systems, this is usually a job of specialists who are trained to do that, because in rain gardens and bioswales you have botanists who know the plants, you have water management people, they know how to drain the water, what kind of layers to have and how to maintain them, when things need to be changed if they get clogged up and stuff, right? Rainwater collection system, when you collect into containers, that's just technology. So you have engineers who
Yes.
run these type of systems,
Yes.
because you have to bring the water in, you have to clean it. If it stays there, you have to maintain that cleanliness. You need to have certain people responsible for that, right? So those are usually specialists. And just like with any technology, as we move forward, um, most cases will happen, most things will happen sort of behind the scene. Just like you using your phone right now, you know what's going on inside. You don't know how that thing
Yeah.
works. You just use it, right? Everything
Yes.
works inside,
And I
and
like
you
it.
just use it.
Yes.
You like it. Same thing. So the technology ideally should be in that way that is almost invisible. It just works by itself with lots of automation, but with human supervision, obviously, but by specialists.
Mm.
Usually, as they say, like for example, in facility management and building management, they say, if you do a good job, then residents of the building don't know you exist.
Yes, yes,
They
yes.
only know when there are problems, and they say, okay, who do I talk to because there's a problem? There's water, hot, cold, whatever, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, which means the systems, when they work well, people don't know they exist.
Yeah.
If there's no flooding, you know water is being managed. You open the tap, water came out. There are lots of people working to make that happen,
Yes.
but you don't know any of that.
Yeah.
Now you should be aware of all that effort that comes up for you to open the tap. But in terms of the management or participating in the operations, it most probably will be just mostly specialists working with that stuff.
Great. Then I have one comment and one last question. One comment
Mm-hmm.
would be very positive. I'm very much happy for myself now and for other young people because I see that New Tashkent is going to be a place providing jobs for us if they need
Absolutely.
specialists. Yes, I'm very much happy. And my second question would be, how about how are we going to educate people who are not used to these separate systems? For example, how are we going to educate them to not throw organic waste into bathrooms or something like this? Because when they do, there will be a problem, or will it be automatically done with a feedback loop? Like they did it, they faced a problem, they didn't do it, so there is no problem, and they learn just by themselves, or what is going to happen?
You are correct that this needs to be addressed through the awareness, through education of the residents of buildings.
Yes.
Now, in most cases, people, if you teach them properly and stuff, they will comply if it's not difficult for them to do it.
Mm.
And it is assumed usually that there will be some organic content thrown in, right?
Uh-huh.
So the system is designed to take some. Now, not a lot, but some
Uh-huh.
of this stuff. So, because there's no 100% guarantee that that will not happen. But it's also design of the building. You have like in some of the newer construction, sometimes they put food disposals where you can dump some stuff. It just shreds it into
Mm-hmm.
pieces and then it goes into the sewage. It's a convenient piece of equipment. You can have it in your kitchen and you don't have to carry it somewhere else, right? You don't have
Nice.
to dump it in your toilet or anything. It's right there. So if you design buildings correctly and make it easier for people to comply with your rules and then educate them about the rules, then that combination usually will have high percentage of compliance, and you will not have a serious issue with organic waste in gray water systems.
Nice, nice. And with that, we would close the Q&A session and the podcast itself. So thank you a lot. It was very interesting. I would say I never knew so much about New Tashkent project, and I'm so happy for it. Actually happy for myself and for people that are going to live there. And I will be actively looking after the project, reading the news in order to be able to know whether it's going all right. So thank you. You're interested. You got one more person interested into this project. So
And
thank you.
I would tell you, you should ask questions, just like your listeners ask questions. Always ask questions because these people, the builders and everything, they're doing business. They're just kind of moving along their business. But when people who are buying apartments or who are applying
Yes.
for jobs or something, when they ask questions or in conferences or in seminars and whatever, they raise overall awareness.
Yes.
From there comes accountability. If you said you're going to do where is that rain garden? You said you're going to do rainwater collection. Where is it, right?
Yeah.
So it's a very important part to continue with asking questions. So thank you very much. for organizing this podcast
Yes.
and give the
Yes.
opportunity to share some of this knowledge and information.
Yeah, thank you a lot. It was a pleasure. It was a pleasure. And have a great day, great rest of the day. Thank you.
Thank you. Same to